little slate on tap for today in MLB DFS. We have Clayton Kershaw, Jacob deGrom, Sonny Gray, Mike Clevenger is back, Dinelson Lamet, and potentially a value arm to consider as well. So a lot of decisions to be made across MLB DFS for today. So let's dive on in and break it on down. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to answer your questions for the next 25 minutes. No matter where you are watching this stream, you can get those questions in. I'm checking out the YouTube chat. We also have questions being monitored over on Twitch and on Facebook. So no matter where you are watching this, make sure you get those questions in. They could be about pitchers for tonight. We can talk some process for MLB DFS overall. We can talk some stacks, one-off hitters, whatever is on your mind. Let me know. We can go through those questions to get you set for tonight's slate. As always, do not forget to subscribe to the FanDuel YouTube page, where we have these streams going up every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern to get you set for that day's MLB DFS slate. We also have the Solo Shot, which is our MLB DFS podcast that is live on YouTube every morning at 9 a.m. If you want to get that earlier than on the DFS podcast feed. We also have the PGA DFS podcast with myself, Brandon Gadula, that records on YouTube 10 a.m. each Tuesday. So a lot of stuff on the FanDuel YouTube page. So make sure you are subscribed. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitch or Facebook if that is where you are watching. The slate composition for today is that we got a lot of good pitchers, and it's kind of tough to decide which one we want to go with. I think that for me, I am leaning towards Jacob deGrom as being my top pitcher for tonight. He's facing the Marlins, and the Marlins are not as bad as we thought they'd be coming into the year, but deGrom has been really good, especially recently. The velocity's been great. Despite all the injuries, he's still been pumping out good performances. So I think Jacob deGrom is on number one. I think that Sonny Gray is right there facing Milwaukee. High strikeout team. I also do like Lamet. His strikeout went up in his most recent, or his pitch count went up in his most recent start. So Lamet is good. And as a value play, Eliezer Hernandez is intriguing too. So good options for today. Let's start the questions off with Mateo. How do you like Arizona and Oakland bats for tonight? Mateo, I like both of them a lot. Arizona is among my favorite stacks of the day. They are facing John Gray. John Gray's had his velocity be down this entire season. Did tick back up in his most recent start, but it was still just as high as it was in his first start this year, and nowhere near as high as it was last year. He has a 5.55 skill interactive ERA this year with a 12% strikeout rate and a 46% hard hit rate. He's also not getting as many ground balls as he did previously, and Arizona is actually the team that handed him the most damage so far. Now, that was at Coors Field. They're not at Coors Field for tonight, so keep that in mind. But I think that the Diamondbacks are among the top stacks of the day. Their lineup, I don't believe, is in yet. We can take a look at the projected lineup for today. Okay, so Cole Calhoun, $3,100. First guy I lock in. Ketel Marte usually is about $35. He's down to $3,000. He fills second base. He can get you some stolen bases as well. So this Arizona team in general is super cheap. So I would say Arizona, definitely my preferred option between those two. Oakland is a good option as well. They're facing Colby Allard as I try to scroll to find that game. Okay, Allard, he's been better this year. The strikeout rate is higher than it had been previously. I forgot to change Anthony K. That's someone else for today. But the strikeout rate for Allard has gone up, but he's allowing a lot of hard contact. He is not getting any ground balls. I guess the hard contact rate is not that high, but not getting a lot of ground balls. The result's been bad. So I think the A's are a great stack. I love Ramon Laureano and Marcus Semien at the top of that order. Two super cheap value plays. Mark Canha, his salary has gone up, but still very much worth it. So Mateo, you are right on the right page there. I like both those teams a lot. Prefer Arizona, but like Oakland too. Tech, thanks for doing this every day. We do appreciate it a lot. I appreciate you as well. Thank you very much. Alvin, do you like the Rays and the Padres for tonight? Okay, so the Rays are facing Asher Wojciechowski. I have this, I'm not sure if it's well-founded, but I have this thing where I think that Asher Wojciechowski is kind of underrated. With that said, he's facing a super lefty-heavy team. So let's pull up Asher Wojciechowski's splits. See how he does against lefties, because this Rays lineup is it's basically all lefties. Let's see here. Yeah, look at all this. Left, right. That's absurd. So the only thing that matters with Asher Wojciechowski is how he does versus left-handed pitchers. So let's go into his FanGraphs splits page here. and see what he does just against lefties, because that's going to be our most relevant sample. We're going to do the splits tool, and we are going to take a look at him from 2019 through 2020 and look at him just versus left-handed batters. And we're going to make this into his career. Again, this is all in FanGraphs, super easy to use and very convenient. Okay, against lefties since the start of last year, 21% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate, 5.56 xFIP. The batted ball profile, 39% hard hit rate, 45% fly ball rate. So, Alvin, yes, I think the Rays are a good option for today. See if we have their lineup loaded here on numberFire already and see what we can find from a salary perspective. Okay, so we got Austin Meadows leadoff 36, Brandon Lau 38. Both those guys are higher salary batters, but I still think they're going to be really good plays for today. Joey Wendell is not someone I use all that often because he's not a super high upside guy. But Ji-Man Choi, $2,500. Yoshi Tsutsugo at $2,500. Both those guys work. Let's dig in here to make sure the numbers for 2020 are good and make sure they're making hard contact. Noah Adames today. He's been hitting really well recently, but he's a righty, so apparently he gets jettisoned facing Asher Wojciechowski. So Lau, awesome. Love that. Meadows, awesome. Love that too. Wendell, yeah, still not really a profile I like, so I'm okay skipping over him. Ji-Man Choi hasn't had great results yet, but the batted ball numbers are still good. Same thing for Tsutsugo. So I would say the left-handed batters near the top of the order, skipping over Wendell, I would say Adams, Lau, Choi, and Tsutsugo, all really good. So the Rays, good option for tonight. The Padres, I spent like 15 minutes on the Rays. Let's look at the Padres here to answer the other half of Alvin's question. They are facing Taijuan Walker. Pretty high variance pitcher. He's been up and down. I think given that I think it was last week, he shut down the Dodgers. I am okay avoiding the Padres for tonight. I would note that it is warmer than usual in San Diego, so slight bump up to the Padres bats there. But I think out of respect for Walker, I am okay avoiding them there. So like the Rays, not as in on the Padres. Johnny, I have DeGrom as my pitcher. I want an under or a less popular stack for my bats. Your thoughts? Okay, so let's find an under the radar stack here for Johnny. You could potentially go with the Rockies. I don't like stacking the Rockies outside of Coors because they are annoying. They tend to have salaries that are higher than they should be. So I don't like the Rockies, but maybe that sentiment translates to others as well. So maybe the Rockies would work from that perspective. Other potentially less popular stacks, the Tigers are facing John Lester. The other benefit of the Tigers is that they are super cheap, so it makes it easier to get to Jacob deGrom if you decide to use them. John Lester having, at least from a peripherals perspective, another rough year. Jonathan Scope batting second at $2,900. He can definitely get the job done. Heimer Candelario, $2,600. I think the Tigers might be a pretty good under-the-radar stack, and they are never all that popular, or they're pretty cheap too. So I think the Tigers might fit the bill there for you. Also, the Rockies as teams that I wouldn't expect a lot of people to be on, but have paths to viability. And the Tigers specifically can help you afford DeGrom too. I know you like the Oakland bats. Who do you think is the best stack for power from them? So if we're thinking about strictly from a power perspective, Matt Chapman is always going to be near the top of that list. Like, Matt Chapman's power is dumb. It is stupid how much power Matt Chapman has. So if you're looking strictly for power out of an Oakland A stack, I would make sure you can get Matt Chapman in there. He's not super easy to get to if you have DeGrom as your pitcher. I know that you mentioned, Johnny, that you do have DeGrom as your pitcher. So let's put DeGrom in here, and let's go with Chapman and see what we have left to cook with after that. Okay, so we put Chapman in there, and we have 29-29. It's not too bad, actually, because I can put Semien in there, and I can put Laureano in there, and they're both $2,800. That'll give us more flexibility. So I think as long as you have other value plays in there, you can make a DeGrom Chapman lineup work. And if we're looking strictly at upside, I think that's great. Got a question from Ethan about Mark Canha. Yes, Mark Canha is a one-off, but he's also a good player to include within an Oakland stack. It does, again, like I said, kind of force you to scramble for value elsewhere, but I like this four-man stack a lot. They all have power. They all have paths to upside. But Chapman, I think if you strictly want power out of your A stack, make sure Matt Chapman is in there. He always has 2-homer upside. Alvin, still into stacking against Barrios? No. I learned my lesson, Alvin. I messed up. We talked about that in the stream last week when Barrios was starting against the Brewers. I had read this piece by Eno Saris, and he said that It seemed like Berrios was kind of the same pitcher as he was last year, was just walking more guys than he had been. He snapped back into it last week. Cleveland, like Milwaukee, is struggling offensively. So I've learned my lesson, Alvin. I will admit that I was very stupid and very wrong. We're not going to make that same mistake again. So not stacking against Berrios here. Renee over on Facebook, Rays lefties. As mentioned before, I think they're pretty good. They were not at the top of my list, but I think, upon digging in deeper, I think that they're very worth it because Wojciechowski, as mentioned, does struggle with left-handed batters. So, yes, I think that that will work for sure. Jesus, I like the Miami side of pitching because the Mets haven't played almost a week for stacks. He likes Chicago, Detroit, Dodgers, Giants tonight. So talking about the Miami pitcher, that's Eliezer Hernandez. I agree with you, Jesus. I think that he's a very good play. I actually had his page pulled up and went away from it, so let's bring this back up here. Eliezer Hernandez is a guy I actually used a couple of times last year in DFS. Didn't have the best results, but I went there because he was able to get strikeouts, and that's so valuable in DFS, but now it's actually been even better. I think his strikeout rate is like 32% this year, 33%, with a 4% walk rate. Is letting up hard contact, and he is on the road. And a lot of the Miami pitchers have fairly extreme home road splits, so that is certainly a concern, but he can get those strikeouts. It's a tough matchup. The Mets don't tend to strike out all that much, but like you said, Jesus, maybe there is some rust concern there with that Mets team. So I would be in on Hernandez without considering that, but I think that when you add that in, Eliezer is my favorite value play for a pitcher for tonight. $8,200. His salary has gone up, so it's not like he's crazy cheap, but he definitely does work. Let's see what happens here if we go with Hernandez over to DeGrom with this A's stack and see how much flexibility that gives us with the other four players in our lineup. 35.50, hot diggity dog. So you could stack the A's with Hernandez really easily. I'd love to do so. So I agree that Hernandez is a fun play. Okay, Jorge Quintana, FanDuel Cash, second baseman. Mike Moustakas or Jonathan Scope, same salary. So let's take a look at the numbers here. I like Scope, as mentioned. I think that it's a pretty good situation for him. Mike Moustakas is facing Adrian Hauser. I have a lot of respect for Hauser. He gets a lot of ground balls. So I think, Jorge, I would definitely go with Jonathan Scope there between those two. Jason, prediction on postponement in Buffalo for the Blue Jays. It does not seem good. I had this tab pulled up for Kevin Roth over on Roto Grinders. He makes it sound like this game's probably not going to play. And Kevin is very good at this stuff because, or at least when teams follow logic, which may not have happened last night. Apologies to anyone who used Garrett Cole. I did too. It was not fun. So that was tough. Hopefully we don't get a similar situation tonight, but it doesn't seem to set up well for playing baseball in Buffalo tonight. I guess it's better now than it was previously. We get our weather at numberFire from Dark Sky Weather, so it seems like they are more optimistic about that game than things look this morning. So what I would say, Jason, is to check out what Kevin says after his 5 p.m. update. So it's possible that game looks a little better, but it's better than it looked before, but I would still be a bit wary of that one for sure. Johnny Escobar from Arizona as a one-off. Eduardo Escobar, always a good option. I think he's had some rough results so far this year, and as a result of that, I've been lower on him than other bats within that Arizona lineup. Like I've been trying to get to Calhoun, Ketel Marte, Escobar. The results still 56 WRC plus against righties. The batted ball numbers they're fine, but they also don't really give me a ton of confidence that he's going to bounce back super quickly. So I would say he's okay as a one-off, but he's not at the top of my list within this stack. I'd rather go with Peralta, Marte, Walker, and Calhoun. So I think Escobar is probably number 5 for me within that specific team. But if you need a third baseman, I think that Escobar can work there. King Paid, thoughts on Dakota Hudson for a tournament? You think he might pitch past the 5th inning? Okay, let's go to Dakota Hudson here. Hudson's getting more strikeouts this year, which is intriguing. A 25% strikeout rate. I think this is for the full season. Throwing more sliders. So he's made 3 starts. So his pitch counts have been 61, 55, and 74. If I'm making a pitch count projection for Dakota Hudson, it's probably 85. And that's not super high. The Royals also not – oopsies, I'm on the wrong one here. Let's go back over here. Okay. So looking at the Royals, I guess they do strike out a decent amount, 25% strikeout rate. The one concern I would have is the one that you alluded to, is that I'm not sure about the pitch count. Again, like if I'm doing a pitch count projection for Hudson, I'm probably sitting about 85 for that projection. That's kind of low. So Hudson, not very high on my list, especially given the stacks that I want to use are not that expensive. But I would note that, he's changing his pitch mix. He's getting more strikeouts so far this year. And Hudson has always been a ground ball guy. So if he can add strikeouts to his repertoire, he could be a really good pitcher. So I think for right now, I'm still in monitor mode on Dakota Hudson. That could change if he keeps getting strikeouts and gets that pitch count up. But I would kind of like to see that first. Not a question from Steve, but a very true comment. If someone watches their car in Atlanta, will they cancel the game? Yes, apparently, Steve. I freak out a lot about weather. I get very concerned because I try to be risk averse when I can. And I just didn't really care that much about the Atlanta game last night. It wasn't even really on my radar as being a possibility. Then I get this push notification at 7:10 that the game is postponed, and I'm just blown away. I was underweight on Garrett Cole, so I got lucky, but it still was not pretty to have 20% Garrett Cole and to have that happen. So I think I got luckier than other people did, but it was tough. Alvin, last question: when stacking, do you worry if the hitters are hot, for good average of the past couple of games? So I would say if you want to judge form on hitters, I would look at strikeout rates versus any of that, because strikeouts are going to be the stats that stabilize most quickly, specifically swinging strike rates, seeing if they're swinging to pitches outside the zone. Who is a good example of this? Okay, so we were just talking about Eduardo Escobar. Let's look at him and see what he's been doing from a strikeout rate perspective over the past couple of games and see if we can potentially buy into him, see what his play discipline has been like, and see if we can buy into that. But I think overall, I don't tend to look at super recent games because it's possible they face a really good pitcher in that time. That could influence things. Escobar just struck out in 3 of 5 plate appearances in his most recent game. Plate discipline wise, he's not chasing a bunch of stuff, but so I think that maybe, if you look at this, you could buy into it. But, 3 strikeouts in the most recent game. I think that if you want to judge a player based on a super small sample, I would say go to the game log on FanGraphs, go to the plate discipline tab, look at their swing and strike rate, and look at, if you want to just go more basic, go with strikeout rate and see how often they're striking out. For Escobar, I think with the strikeouts being a little bit higher recently, specifically his most recent game, that's enough where I'm, again, going to keep him 6th on my Arizona stack. But again, just broadly, I would say look at the strikeout rate. Let's go over to Periscope. Question from Austin Blair. Best 2-team stack for today. Okay, so overall stacks, I like the Cubs a lot. I know I recommended them yesterday. It very much did not work. I'm abundantly aware of that. But they're facing Michael Fulmer. Fulmer was better his last start out, but still allowed 5 earned runs across 3 innings. So I would say the Cubs would be number 1 for me. They're also pretty easy to afford. So Cubs number 1. The other team to stack, I would say the Diamondbacks against John Gray. I have not seen an update on a Chase Field to keep the roof open. They have recently quite a bit. So my baseline assumption is that the roof will be open, which is why I have the temperature here at 108 versus 73. So I would say the Diamondbacks and the Cubs would be number 1 and number 2. If we hear that the roof will be closed in Arizona, I think the roof will be closed in Texas too, but I would say the A's would be up there as well from a stacking perspective. So I think Cubs, Diamondbacks, A's, depending on how they decide to work those stadiums there. Tim, any thoughts on stacking against Taijuan Walker? Yeah, we talked about this before, probably before you tuned in, Tim. I have a lot of respect for Taijuan Walker. He just went 7 innings. I keep swirling my chair. Sorry, probably making you nervous out there. But he just went 7 innings against the Dodgers his last start out, and he's had other pop starts outside of that. And it's also not a great park for stacking, although the temperature is higher tonight than usual. So I think with those factors being there, I'm not super inclined to go Padres. So they're not very high on my list. I don't think that it's a bad play to stack the Padres, but it's not one that I'll be getting to personally, just because there are other stacks I like more. Jesus, top 3 pitching for tonight from high to cheap. Okay, so mentioned, we talked earlier, Jesus, about Eliezer Hernandez. He'd be my favorite lower salary pitcher. Favorite higher salary pitcher, Jacob deGrom. I like Kershaw. His velocity has been great this year, but the Giants are going super platoon heavy. That means they're going to have a lot of righties out there. They've also been avoiding strikeouts versus lefties and against righties too, honestly. So I'm going to go DeGrom over Kershaw, and I think that Sonny Gray is my number 2 among the super high-end guys because the Brewers strike out a lot. The reason I have DeGrom over Gray is that DeGrom is at home, whereas Gray is on the road. We still have seen home road splits out of pitchers so far this year, so I think I go DeGrom. In the middle range, Dinelson Lamet, his pitch count was 97 his most recent start. He had been above 85 just once prior to that. So that, to me, says they're okay letting Lamet go deeper into a game, and I like that. He's also facing Seattle. They will strike out. Lamet has ditched his sinker. It's a pretty bad pitch for him, so I'm excited to see that. Just a fastball slider, but when you're a 2-pitch pitcher, you need those 2 pitches to be really good. It just so happens with Dinelson Lamet that those 2 pitches are very good. So I would say in the middle range, it's Lamet. So DeGrom up top, Lamet in the middle, Hernandez on the bottom are my favorite plays for today. A lot of strikeouts for Dinelson Lamet over his most recent starts. Question from Austin Blair on Periscope. Any Colorado tonight? Yeah, I mentioned before, I hate stacking the Rockies outside of Coors Field. It drives me nuts. I hate their salaries always. I don't think they have that many players I want to use when they don't have the benefit of Coors Field. However, Robbie Ray seems kind of broken right now. He's not getting strikeouts. Ooh, Diamondbacks lineup is out. That is as expected. So status quo on the Diamondbacks. But Ray seems broken. And he would always get these strikeouts, but everything else is bad. But now he's not getting as many strikeouts. So Colorado is in play. I just really despise stacking them. So I might not get there despite the fact that they make sense out of like resentment towards stacking them outside of Coors Field. But Garrett Hampson, I think, went deep last night, which means maybe he's getting his mojo back. Maybe they'll put him back at the top of the lineup. I wouldn't expect that because he didn't hit there last night. They had Raimel Tapia batting leadoff. So I would say Hampson's in play depending on where he hits. Maybe Matt Kemp. Kemp's been pretty rough too. Brendan Rodgers you could consider. So there are options there, but they're not going to be near the top of my list out of just, I'm annoyed with the way that they tend to work outside of Coors Field. Question from Johnny. Thoughts on Seattle bats against Lamet? Yeah, so again, I like Lamet as a pitcher because the strikeout rate is so good. Like my sample on Lamet in my sheet is the past 3 starts with no sinkers. In those 3 starts, a 2.23 skill interactive ERA with a 44% strikeout rate. That is bonkers. And Seattle's exceeded expectations, so kudos to them because they traded away everyone this offseason, but the guys they have left are still hitting well. So kudos to them, but it's still not a daunting matchup. A 100 WRC plus against righties, 23% strikeout rate. Lamet does let up a lot of hard contacts. That does give some thought to stacking against him, but that's also on a ball in play just 50% of the time, and we want a bigger number than that. I think that if I could craft an ideal stack, it would be against a pitcher who allows a ball in play 80% of the time, and Lamet's at 50%. So I don't see a lot of value in stacking against him, despite the fact that he allows a lot of hard contact. I want more balls in play. He's really good. So Dinelson Lamet at $9,300 is definitely a pitcher I like for tonight. We've not looked at the Cubs lineup yet, so let's pull that up and see if that is in yet. Okay, so they have Ian Happ leadoff good, Anthony Rizzo second good, Javier Baez good. So this is kind of the expectation for the Cubs. The one thing that's slightly different is that David Bote is batting 7th as opposed to 8th. He's been batting 8th a lot recently, so up a spot in the order. Let's see what Bote's numbers are against righties so far this year. Bote, 46% hard hit rate, 38% fly ball rate, so a lot of strikeouts, but that's not as much of a concern. Actually, Chip just asked about this on Facebook. Yes, I think a Cub stack is a very good option, so good timing for you, Chip. I think that despite the strikeouts, Bote is still an option. I don't think his salary is all that high. I'm probably going to have issues here with Chapman, but 25-ish, I believe, for Bote. 26, yeah. So I would say a Cub stack is a great option for today. Let's actually put DeGrom in there because I honestly think you can make a Cub stack work with DeGrom as your pitcher. Let's go DeGrom. Let's get him out of there. Let's go with DeGrom at pitcher. And let's toggle on the Cubs here because I think the Javier Baez is still like $2,900, which is I guess he's up to 33. So we used Javier Baez too much recently, and his salary's gone up. So that's our fault. But regardless, still not all that expensive. We got Kyle Schwarber as a decent value play. I think I'll go Bodie over Hayward. I think that Jason Hayward's a good option too, but like I kind of don't mind Bodie to fill third base, and I want Rizzo in there. So we got him. This does mean that I'm, betraying the thing I said this morning, which was I need to make sure I don't overlook Ian Happ, but I still like this stack a lot. So Hayward, Bodie, they're all in play. Happ is a very good option. You have 7 legitimately good options within this Cubs lineup. And Josh is pointing out rightly that the bottom of the order has been carrying the Cubs lineup recently. I know, Josh, because I've been stacking the top half and it hasn't done a whole lot. So I'm aware it's been tough. I'd like the top half to do something tonight. So let's nudge them along and let's get the top half of the order for the Cubs working for tonight. Jesus, Colorado's a team everyone is talking about today. I'm staying off it. If they beat me, they beat me. If everyone's talking about them, that gives me reason to go with the other side. So I think you're right, Jesus. I'm not as high on them because I just don't think there are that many hitters I really want to use on Colorado. So I think that if they're going to be popular, I'd be okay jumping off as well. That is all the time that we have for today. As always, though, thank you for the awesome questions, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. We appreciate you, and Periscope, too. We appreciate you, as always. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you are watching this so you can get notifications as we go live every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern to answer your questions for that night's MLB DFS slate. Do not forget that lock is earlier tonight, 6:37, as opposed to 7:05 for this evening. So get those lineups in at the appropriate time. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you have additional questions, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. Good luck for tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.